Welcome to Season 9, Episode 8 of the Ubuntu Podcast. In this episode, we're going to be discussing how to fix your Ubuntu machine when it goes horribly wrong. We'll also have some command line love, and we'll go over your feedback. I'm Mark, and joining me this week are Alan.
Hello.
Laura.
Hiya.
And Martin.
Hello.
So, Martin, what have you been up to since last time?
Mostly I've been trying to accelerate bits on the Raspberry Pi 2 and 3.
And how have you been doing this?
Eric Anholt, who now I think works for the Raspberry Pi Foundation, has been working on video core drivers for X and Mesa and the Gallium State Tracker and all the rest of it. So part of it is trying to use those to run accelerated OpenGL, which works to some extent.
Or does this mean you can have composited desktops and stuff and more powerful games?
It definitely means you can do the game thing. So there are some OpenGL games you can play, but the thing that's really got my interest is I'd like to think that I'm the first person to do this. Maybe I'm not, but I've been running Ubuntu Unity desktop on the Raspberry Pi 3 and also Kubuntu 1604 and to some extent Ubuntu GNOME 1604 on the Raspberry Pi 3.
I would confidently say you're probably the first person to do that.
Well, you just don't know. There are so many people out there silently banging on these things. You just don't know if somebody's done it before. But it's been a lot of fun doing that. And having played with that, I was then like, so what else can we get going? And it just so happens that around the same time, projects like FFmpeg have started to add into the mainline source their acceleration capabilities for the Raspberry Pi as well. So I've been building VLC and FFmpeg and MPV and even Kodi for Ubuntu for the Raspberry Pi. And those things are all accelerated and by and large working very well. I've got a few rough edges in Kodi still, but the others are working very nicely.
Oh, you could run Kodi or XBMC on the Raspberry Pi before, couldn't you? What can you do?
You could using Raspbian, yes, and they're OpenELEC and the various sort of niche projects. But Raspberry Pi traditionally hasn't been a target for Ubuntu, so I've been bringing over
specifically
that
for Ubuntu.
Yeah, bringing over that work from the various sort of spin-off Raspbian and spin-off projects to Ubuntu.
Cool.
Sweet. What about you, Mark? What have you been up to?
Well, what have I been up to? I've been not turning my laptop off.
Uh-oh.
I know that feeling.
Yes. So my laptop's had this problem on and off for the past year or so, whereby sometimes it won't turn on, and it's got to the point now where I'm afraid to turn it off in case I can't turn it on again.
That's not good.
Fear the power cut, Mark.
I used to have a car like that.
Oh, the battery's fine.
Is this what you soldered at one point?
The power jack broke, so I had to resolder the power jack, which lasted for about 2 months, and then that stopped working, so I replaced the whole motherboard, but that still hasn't fixed the problem with the power button. So maybe I need to replace the keyboard as well, but I'm wondering if it might just be time to cut my losses and get a new laptop.
And it sounds like Trigger's broom.
I hear those ThinkPad 450s are the bee's knees.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
And half the price of the 460s.
We get on with it.
Yeah, let's.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to unbreak your Ubuntu computer, or we all are, because a few weeks ago I was due to leave work early to go and speak at an event, and about half an hour before I shut down my laptop, I wanted to back up my slides just in case my laptop didn't work for some reason when I got there. So I needed to format the USB key. Unfortunately, when I formatted the USB key, I accidentally formatted the /boot partition on my laptop instead.
Whoops.
Nice one.
Yeah. So it being Ubuntu, this didn't crash the whole system. The whole system just sat there going, yeah, whatever, just normal. And I fortunately thought not to shut the thing down. And I also actually made a startup disk with another USB key because I figured worst comes to worst. At least I'd have a startup disk. So then I just suspended the machine, which it turns out you don't need the boot partition to recover from. And my battery would hold out, which was fine. And I managed to get through the whole evening, presenting from it and everything.
By the seat of your pants.
Yeah.
Wow.
I plugged it into the projector. I had to warn people around me not to let me, if the projector didn't work first time, reboot the machine to make it work. But it didn't. It just worked. Everything was fine. I was on Skype and everything using this machine, and when I wasn't using it, I plugged it in. So it was sitting there in suspend for a lot of the evening when I wasn't using it. And then I took it home again and plugged it in. And then the next day I started to work out how on earth I was going to fix this. I knew it was doable from previous experience. Not of that exact problem, but yeah.
When you say previous experience, from the many, many times I've formatted my boot partition in the past.
No, I think because it's a long time since I've had to deal with live CDs like Knoppix and that for actually fixing things.
Right.
But I did remember when things like when you've installed Windows in dual boot and it destroys your master boot record and you have to then do stuff to recover access to grub and things. And I think there's something else I've done where I've managed to recover it all by myself using Knoppix disk. But all this was a long, long time ago. I couldn't remember.
So there was an interesting bit of forethought there that you decided to do. Like the first thing was, I need to make a live USB key, because I'm going to have to probably boot into that at some point. I might have to in order to fix things. So that makes me think maybe I should carry one of those live USB keys around with me for just these kind of eventualities. Because
I did actually take a few years ago to, whenever I did an install, the first thing I would do was just take the install image and put it on another USB thing and have that handy, because I was always when I was more of a tinkerer with my laptop rather than a user of it, I would always do funny things and end up breaking things and have to boot into a live disk more often than not.
I see people I sometimes see people with like a big bundle of keys, and they have like a USB key on there. I've never felt confident enough to put a USB key on, because most of the USB keys I have, I think, would just get smashed to bits, or they're too bulky to go in my pocket, or I don't really want to carry a 24/7 USB key to fix someone's laptop, which is a hypothetical situation which may never occur.
So I do carry a USB stick on my bunch of keys, and I invested in one of those small aluminium USB keys. It's 64 gig. I've got a live the startup disk with persistence on it. And it's remarkably useful when I go and visit family and their Windows computer is got the plague again and you need to get in there and fix it for them. So everywhere I go, I always have a recovery.
Is yours one of those ones that doesn't have the shell on it? It's like just like a YubiKey, like just the 4 pins. No,
it's a stub length, so it's only about as long as it needs to insert itself into the USB port.
Right.
And it's aluminium with a loop that's connected to the keyring. So it's very small. You don't really notice it's there, but it's extremely useful.
Okay. So that, first step number 1, we should all just go and get one of those.
Yeah.
We'll put an Amazon referral link in the show notes.
So the key bit of information that I recalled from my past of actually understanding some of this boot procedure was that the /boot partition contains both the kernels that you've installed that run the whole thing, and the grub bit that actually starts the boot process, and they're the main two things that were needed to recover. The reason it's a separate partition is because I've got an encrypted hard drive, and when you choose to encrypt your hard drive, it creates a separate boot partition by default, because you can't encrypt your /boot partition, otherwise you wouldn't be able to boot your machine. So the reason that I got the live disk actually partly was because I knew that all my data, which is mostly backed up, but it would be a bit of a pain to recover it all. All my data is on my encrypted hard drive. and I didn't want to not be able to get to my encrypted hard drive. And I wasn't certain I would be able to anyway, but as it turned out, if you boot into a machine with a live Ubuntu disk, it just mounts your encrypted hard drive and prompts you for the password.
Oh,
so you can get
really?
it back.
That's
yes,
really
and
handy.
that was really key, but I didn't know that in advance.
I didn't know that.
No.
Wow, that's really handy to know. Because
Yeah.
I have that on. I've just done a clean install on my new ThinkPad, and I chose to do fully encrypted. So yeah, I definitely need to have a live key on my on my keyring.
Yeah.
So then you've got a situation where you need to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what do you search for? I have wiped my boot partition. You know, help
Well,
me internet.
My initial thing was to go on Telegram, ping you guys and go, is there anything obvious I should do to fix this? And I think the next day we tried to reinstall the kernels, which sort of worked, except that it was confused because it was creating a different /boot partition on my encrypted hard drive when we were doing this. And so the kernels weren't going into the right place anyway, and it wasn't reinstalling grub.
So they were going into a /boot folder on your encrypted partition,
Yes.
not into the...
Because that was
Right.
decrypted at the time because I was
Yes.
running it still.
Yeah, because you hadn't explicitly told it to mount the boot partition
Yeah.
like up front. You know, that makes sense.
Okay.
So that's where the live USB key came in, because first of all, I had to reformat the /boot partition from the FAT format that it was in to X4, which is fine. By the way, if you ever use disks, the GUI
Yes.
for formatting disks, it has an interesting effect of when you've selected the right USB drive to format, it formats it quite quickly, and then it changes the focus.
Oh,
does it?
oh, because it rescans all the devices and then resets the focus back to the first one in the list, does it?
Yeah.
Now, Laura,
Yeah.
Laura, you're in good company here, because I heard that the CEO of Red Hat did exactly the same thing not so long ago,
really?
and completely wiped his whole machine.
Oh no. I did sort of wonder what would happen if I'd selected the encrypted hard partition. The
It's not
encrypted
to think too
partition.
hard about that.
I have done that accidentally in exactly the
But
same
wouldn't-
circumstances you describe, and it did give me a warning to say that this was a mounted thing, and I'm like, thank goodness for that, because I was just about to, trash the whole thing.
I wasn't in the best state of mind that day, so it did prompt me for passwords. And I just entered them. So I'm not sure that any
This'll be
warning
fine.
might have helped. Yeah. I remember thinking, this isn't the right password, but it's accepting it. Therefore, it must be fine. And as soon as it had happened, I was just like, oh, I've just formatted a partition that's about 500 meg. That's a funny coincidence. My boot partition's 500 meg.
Oh dear.
So yeah. Oh well. Anyway, so so this was like the next day after it had been on all night. And the reinstalling the kernels didn't work because when you think through, it wasn't going into the right place anyway. So I booted up into the live CD, by which point I had to reboot the machine. So it was just like, well, there's nothing else I can do while it's still booted. So I rebooted it into the live CD on the USB key. And yeah, that just brought up the desktop on the live version, and then, as I say, it mounted my hard drive, so I could actually have copied stuff off at that point, and I did for some things. But then we had to get a bit more technical and use chroot, which is sorry, I've got a cough as well. Which is a way of mounting. Let me get this right. It's a way of you've basically got your running file system, operating system that's running off the live USB key, and you're wanting to sort of virtually mount another operating system file system into that one. Is that the right way around?
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. And you use chroot to do that. I think there's the root that is literally making
Change
the
root.
root.
Yeah.
As in change root file system, as opposed to the user.
Yes.
Yes. No, as in, you're not changing to the root user, you're changing the root directory to
be
another directory.
Yeah.
Which is a directory of your actual system on your, in your case, your encrypted partition.
Yeah, that was it.
Right.
So you had to change, there were about 3 or 4 different mount points, I think, or 3 or 4 different things we had to map
there's
across.
some dev, proc, and sys
That's it.
needed to be mounted as well.
And
Right, so that means that you've got all of the sort of the underlying system and kernel-y bits in your new root directory. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I'll try and find a link that we used for that. So that then you can actually access it all properly, and then updated the FS tab. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
all the...
because you'd reformatted /boot, the UUID of that had changed, and so the ETCFS tab would be wrong because it was pointing to the UUID of the old boot partition. So you need to change that. Yes,
So I had to go and find the UUID and copy and paste that into the FS tab, which was fine. And then we could mount it all, mount/boot into this.
Right. So then you've got all your partitions mounted how you want them to be on your actual running system.
Yeah.
But you've still got no kernels installed.
No. And at that point, I could reinstall the kernels and... reinstall the kernels. And it was a little bit odd because it sort of thought that the kernels were already installed because I'd already installed them badly before doing all this. So I had to uninstall them and then reinstall them or just install different numbers. But eventually got enough kernels installed that I was fairly confident that one of them would boot.
Install all the kernels.
Install all the kernels.
Yeah. And then installed Grub as well using this website link that explained how. And that wasn't actually too bad to do once we had that. And then rebooted. And it booted. And all was well.
And all is fine.
And that was my Good Friday afternoon.
My gosh. So what lessons have you learned from that other than the I need a USB key and read the thing that's on the screen when I'm formatting partitions? Actually, how did you format the partition? You formatted it with the disks utility?
Yes.
Right.
Because on Windows, you can just right-click a USB key and go, format this disk. And it's really useful. On Ubuntu, you can't do that. It's a bit more involved, and the only way, there may be better ways of doing it, but the way that I've found to do it before is just to go into the disks GUI rather than do it from the command line, because then I'd have to remember the command. So I just do it from from the disk utility. Unfortunately, all the disks are listed. Yeah, that's the thing. It would
be nice if there were only like removable storage, because with things like UNet booting. For making bootable USBs, you can tell that to only show you removable devices, and it won't give you your hard disk.
That would be good.
That would be quite nice to have an interface for that.
So just to clarify, and it may be because I'm running 1604, but if you open Nautilus, the pane on the left at the file manager on Ubuntu, the pane on the left hand side will show your USB key, and if you right click that, there is a format option in there.
Oh.
I don't know how long that's been there, but just in case anyone wrote in and said, actually, Laura, there is an entry, so I get to say it first. Actually, Laura, there is an entry.
Well, I'm on 1404, but I can't swear that that's not the case as well.
Yeah. Nor can I, but I had no idea. I never even thought to look for it.
Yeah. It's one of those things you don't do very often, so wow.
So yeah, don't format the wrong partition, and when it does prompt you for the password, use that as a warning to just check that you are formatting the right partition.
Don't get snowblind password prompts.
So was most of like what you found in terms of answers to how do I unbreak this? Like some of it was asking people on Telegram and stuff. Mm-hmm. How much of it was Googling and actually hitting the right answer, and how much of it was just you remembering stuff from the past?
I didn't remember stuff spontaneously. It was more that once I read something, I was like, oh yeah, I remember vaguely something about this, which kind of helped a bit. I think I got as far as, with you over Telegram, we did the trying to reinstall the kernels, but because it wasn't in the right partition, it didn't work. So when I rebooted, it didn't have any grub. And it was at that point that me and a friend started Googling.
Right.
And found this webpage that I'll try and find again, because we basically just copied and pasted the commands in. And as soon as I started seeing the chroot commands, that all sort of came flooding back then. And and it's kind of, chroot's a bit of a funny thing to get your head around what it is doing. But because I had done it before, as soon as I saw the command, I was like, oh, I see. Yes, that's what I need to do. And that's how I must have done it in previous times. But it was, it was quite annoying as well how little I remembered.
It was an interesting one. I've never managed to do that myself, but it's interesting to hear other people breaking their system in new and interesting and innovative ways. And
that it can be fixed as well.
Yeah, and that's the important thing. And with a bit of Googling and some help from some friends, you can unbreak it. And it's not like, I often hear people saying, oh, I had to wipe it and start again. And that's the absolute last resort and you can pave. But it is, with a bit of time, okay, you were lucky it was a in inverted commas, lucky that it was Easter holiday, so you weren't busy doing anything else other than eating chocolate, apparently.
And that it was the boot partition as well.
There's that too, yeah. So
I think,
go on.
I think the thing that previous knowledge did help with was that I had a fair confidence from the start that it was fixable, and that if I didn't reboot the machine, I would be able to continue using it. I wasn't certain that going into suspend would work, but I didn't have any option but to try it, which is why I then got the startup disk created before I shut that down. Right. And I made sure I had a copy of my slides, which was good. Which was what started
otherwise
it all.
they'd be in your encrypted partition.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I think that did give me the confidence that it was doable, and I knew that you could get on with doing stuff without having certain things running. Like, because when you install a new kernel, it carries on using the old kernel until you reboot. So it's that I do quite like that once it's running, and you can change things underneath it, and it doesn't matter till you reboot.
Right, the old switcheroo. Yes.
Yeah.
I like the fact that you've invented a new extreme sport, which is suicide presentations, which is, obliterate your machine just before you're about to go on stage and then see if you've got the nerve to actually, run this crippled machine to get through your slides.
I like that sport. I wonder if there's other ways you could do I'm going to start giving this presentation by pouring a glass of water over my laptop, and let's see how far I get and see how mad you can extreme presentations. There could be a thing there, Laura.
Start running RMRF at the beginning of your presentation and see how far through.
Minus no preserve.
Some pictures disappearing from your presentation while you're giving it. Brilliant.
It's sort of a bit like Back to the Future. You start fading in front of everyone.
Yeah, just your arm fades first.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was awesome. Thank you, Laura, for the insight. And if anyone else has any tales, if they're super long, then we probably won't be able to read them out, but we'll love to read them. If you can turn them down into something short, then that would be awesome. Or just tell us the most mad way you've completely nuked a machine and see if you can top Laura or our stupid ideas. Thanks very much. And now it's time for Command Line Love. And in Command Line Love, I'm going to give you a command that I think is awesome, and I used it this week. And that's why I'm telling you about it. So I use DigitalOcean sometimes for doing stuff in the cloud. So I spin up a DigitalOcean droplet, for example. I think I've mentioned this in the past. Sometimes I want...
This is a VM platform.
Virtual private servers.
Yeah.
And they're quite good and they're quite cheap. And you can spin one up quickly and then shut it down again when you're finished with it. So, for example, sometimes a program will come on in the States and will be available to watch on YouTube, but it's geo-locked to the States and I can't watch it. So what I generally do is spin up a DigitalOcean droplet and then use YouTube DL to download it by running the droplet in the States, YouTube DL, and then grab the video to home and then shut the droplet down again because I don't need it anymore. And so these kind of spin up a machine, do something, shut it down is quite a cool thing to do. And DigitalOcean have an API, and I had a script that worked with this old API, and they changed their API, and all my scripts broke. And I went looking for documentation and examples, and DigitalOcean's documentation is actually really good. There's lots of community maintained articles about how to use their APIs and stuff. but there wasn't really much for the version 2 of their API. And then I stumbled upon something called doctl. And doctl, we'll put a link in the show notes, is a command line tool that you can run to manage DigitalOcean services. So you can say doctl and list all of the servers you have running, or doctl and start up a new one and specify how much RAM it's got and what version of Linux it's going to have and which region it's going to be in, whether it's in the New York or London data center or wherever. And then you can doctl destroy it afterwards. And it's actually really a lot easier to use than their API, because you can just put it in the middle of a script. You can have a shell script running on your laptop that does a doctl, sparks up a machine, then SSHs into it, does something, and then destroys it again afterwards. It's really, really cool. It's written in Golang, I think. But yeah, if you use DigitalOcean, or if you don't use DigitalOcean and you have some need for a remote server to do something, then doctl is quite a cool, useful tool.
That sounds fabulous. I am so going to have a play with that next week.
That's the end of command line love.
We love getting your feedback, so please send it to us. Even the pointlessly mean stuff makes us laugh. If it's short, tweet us on @Ubuntu Podcast. If it's less short, but please no essays, email us on show@ubuntupodcast.org. If you'd like to discuss some of the things we talk about with other listeners, post on our shiny new subreddit at reddit.com/r/Ubuntu Podcast. Or you can just leave a comment on the relevant show notes on our website, ubuntupodcast.org.
And as Laura just said, lots of you have sent us your feedback, and now we're going to go through it. So our first listener feedback is from Linux user who posted on our blog comments.
How about listing the time, minutes and seconds, for topics for those of us who do not have the time to listen to the whole program and would just like to go to the topics of interest?
It's half an hour.
So one counter argument, as Martin eloquently put it, is it's half an hour of your life. Just listen to the whole thing. The other
It would also take us more time to do it than it would save you.
Yes. I have seen a lot of other podcasters who do this and put the time codes in.
Maybe we should just put up our sort of
spend a lot more
general
time.
layout of our shows, because they're all pretty much to the same kind of time.
What? So just put times in there, even though they're wrong. Just put
No. As in, we just have a general sort of this episode will be vaguely 15 minutes of news, whatever minutes of community news, and then outro or whatever we normally do.
Yeah, maybe. Or we could just stick to the times, and then just have them permanently there for the right times, and then just, when we have an intro that we've set aside 4 minutes for, and we only speak for 2.5 minutes, we have 90 seconds of dead air while we wait for the time to roll round, or we just sit there.
Oh boy.
Trouble is, Wakey app isn't working on my tablet today, so across the other side of the room I have a black screen staring at me.
Where the clock should
So I've
be.
no idea what time is.
I could read the time out periodically. that might be good. No,
That'd be
I don't
hilarious.
think any of these are good solutions, Linux user. I'm sorry. Moving on.
No. Pieter2627 posted in our blog comments.
Glances also has a server mod so that you can connect to it from a remote computer, where Glances is started in client mode. The same kind of thing can also be done by Glances in web mode. Then any device, computer to mobile, can view it by going to the machine's IP in a browser. This mode also exposes a web API, and I recently created a scope for the Ubuntu phone, yay, that queries this API and displays some of the data in the scope, though it still misses some features.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That is really
What was
cool.
Glances? We talked about Glances, didn't we?
Yeah, it's the
System monitor.
the picture you see in the latest show notes. The like top
Retro
like
term.
top
Yes.
better. Top on
I'll
crack.
tell you what, our listeners went mad for it.
Really?
There were so many people saying that they loved Glances.
It's funny because when we got this comment, I didn't even know Glances had a network capability, but it reminded me of something I used to run on Debian in 2002, which was a thing called Krellum, Krellm.
Oh, yes.
And there was a GUI called gkrellum that you would run, and it would connect to remote machines, and it would show you a graphical kind of not pie charts, but little bar graphs of network activity on remote services and stuff like that. So
see, I used gcrellum, but I only ever used it for like local system monitoring. I never actually, when you have like the flashy widgets on your desktop for no particular reason.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that did network stuff.
You run Crellum on the other machine, and then you just run gcrellum with a -h or something and a host name. It's been like 14 years since I last ran it, so I can't remember. But yeah, it's the same kind of thing. Awesome.
Cool.
Shannon Odom followed up via our Facebook page to say,
Code Club lessons for Scratch were a hit with the students. Thanks, everyone. I was pleasantly surprised to hear my post on this week's show.
Yay.
And this week's show.
Yeah. Glad to hear it went well.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, the Code Club stuff is really good.
Wim Raidmaker posted on our blog comments.
For the kids learning programming to have the quick on speed, I've tried this on a couple of school kids and they really liked it. My children 6 and 8 walked through the course in no time, and he gave us a link to code.org, which has a browser-based programming environment very much like Scratch, where they give you little tiny tasks like move the Angry Bird towards the pig, and you have to drag and drop the pieces of code in to make the Angry Bird walk towards the pig, and then they get increasingly harder as time goes on. And my kids do it as well. They do it at school, actually. They have school accounts, and then they come home and show me what they've done on code.org. It's really cool.
Ron Goodman emailed us at show@ubuntupodcast.org.
Just catching up with the episodes, and thought I would respond to Martin's request in episode 4 for anyone having problems playing the podcasts.
You're going to regret that, Martin.
Yeah, note to self, be quiet.
Yes, Martin wants to hear from everyone.
Everyone.
No, Martin has heard from everyone that's important. Thank you, Ron.
I have a Nexus 7 Android tablet and find playing podcasts via the webpage in Chrome only buffers and plays around 80 to 90% of the episodes. I've tried playing most of this year's episodes with the same result, never being able to play the last 20% or so. I've only seen this on the tablet, so I assume it's something to do with this version of Chrome.
Possibly.
There's 2 ways you could read that. It says only buffers and plays around 80% to 90% of the episodes. Does that mean each individual episode gets 80 to 90% of the way through it, or of all the episodes, he can only play 80 to 90% of them?
I think the former, because he says he's never able to play the last 20% or so, having tried most of this year's episodes.
I don't know. I think we need more email from Ron to clarify this and let us know
before Martin can sort it out
what he means, and we'll try and get Martin to fix it.
Did Martin say earlier that he replicated this problem?
No, I said no such thing. I
tried to actually earlier on my 2012 Nexus 7, and I didn't see the issue. But then I don't know if it happens on every episode or only some. So yeah, Ron, do get back in touch and let us know.
Brilliant. Wim Raidmaker also emailed us at show@ubuntupodcast.org.
Thank you for creating this great podcast. It's always a joy listening to you guys during my commute. Because I don't have a lot of Linux-loving colleagues to talk to about new developments in Linux land, I especially like the discussions and background information on, for example, building the Mate image for Raspberry Pi. Today, Microsoft released their first insider build with Bash support, on which Canonical had their share implementing it. As a Linux user, I find it hard to understand why Canonical would be interested in spending time on this project. Could you please give me your ideas and opinions on this? Yes, we can. We can if you listen to last week's episode.
And we did.
Yeah. Henry Sprogg emailed us at show@ubuntupodcast.org with his command line love, and we've added it to our growing collection for a future episode. Thank you, Henry. And Dave Hingley commented via Facebook.
Hi team, I hope you're relaxing following a great season. I don't know if this is in your wheelhouse, but I recently finished a short animated film using only open source software, and he's given us a link.
Yeah, so this is my bad, because actually I talked to Dave back in January when I saw this in our Facebook comments, and we'll include a link to Dave's video in the show notes so you can all go along and have a look. It's very good. And at the time I spoke to Dave, he said he would be up for being interviewed about how he's created these things. So maybe we'll have an interview with Dave in a future episode.
That'd be cool.
And Darren emailed us at show@ubuntupodcast.com.
Hi, I'm Darren from Fix It Leads. We are a recycling company, upcycling older PCs, fixing them, and then selling them to people who can't afford to buy new PCs. I was asked to get in touch with Martin directly, but I don't have a number to contact him or email. I enclose details of what we're doing at Fix It Leads and our crowdfunding.
Ah.
So what are they crowdfunding for?
Right. Well, I've subsequently been in touch with Darren. So we are in direct contact now. Fix It Leads are in a space at the moment where they're doing their work, refurbishing and reselling old computers, but they need to find new premises, and their crowdfunding campaign is to help them get the funds together to find new premises to do their good work. And we'll include links to their Indiegogo campaign in the show notes. And I heartily recommend everyone go along there and just chip a little bit in their pot to help them find somewhere to carry on the good work, because all of their computers that they're refurbishing are running Ubuntu Mate.
Oh, I see why you're so enthusiastic about this.
Yeah.
Well, it could be any flavour of Linux or Ubuntu, but that they managed to get Ubuntu Mate on the television in the UK, so I think they deserve a mention.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think that's the end of our feedback.
Yeah. That's all for episode 8. We'll be back next week and we'll have more news, comment, and discussion.
Don't forget, let us know what platform you're listening to the podcast on and tell Martin whether it works or not.
Please don't.
Also, tell us about your disasters with your computers and what you think of Microsoft and Canonical. See you next time.
Ta-ra.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And stop.
That was fine, yeah.